April 20th, 1961, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, 6:15 in the morning. A crowd of Army generals, Pentagon officials, and military engineers stood along a marked flight path in the cold morning fog. Cameras ready, a doctor on standby, a fire extinguisher, just in case, and one man strapped into a device the United States Army believed could change ground warfare forever. A rocket. On his back, he ignited it, rose off the ground, flew forward 100 feet for exactly 21 seconds, then he landed, and the Army went silent, because they just spent $150,000 on 21 seconds. And the most ambitious personal flight program in American military history was already dying before it left the ground. Here's what nobody told you about that moment. The flight worked perfectly. The engineer flew exactly as designed. The device performed exactly as built. Every system functioned, and the Army still walked away. Which means the problem wasn't the technology, the problem was something far more fundamental. And understanding what that problem was explains why soldiers today still don't have jetpacks, and why the Pentagon is quietly trying again right now. To understand what the Army thought it was building, you have to go back to 1957. The Cold War was at maximum pressure. Sputnik had just crossed overhead, and American military planners were terrified of being outmaneuvered. In space, in the air, and on the ground. On the ground, they had a specific problem. Foot soldiers were slow. Rivers stopped them, ridgelines stopped them, minefields stopped them, and in the new age of modern warfare, moving a single soldier over any obstacle instantly had enormous tactical value. In 1957, the Army issued a formal request. They called it the grasshopper concept. Give a soldier the ability to jump higher, move faster, cross water, clear obstacles without a vehicle. Without a crew, without infrastructure, just the man and the machine on his back. They wanted jetpacks, and they had a contractor who'd been secretly working on exactly that for years. Bell Aerosystems had a hidden advantage. An engineer named Wendell Moore had been sketching designs for a personal rocket pack since 1953. Not under contract, not on orders, on his own time, because he believed it was possible. When the Army came calling in '57, Bell already had years of private research ready. They won the contract immediately. Moore's design used hydrogen peroxide as fuel. Highly concentrated hydrogen peroxide, forced through a silver catalyst, decomposes instantly into superheated steam at 740 degrees Celsius. That steam blasts out through two curved nozzles at the pilot's shoulders. Pure thrust, no combustion, no explosion, invisible exhaust. The pilot controls direction by shifting body weight and angling the nozzles with hand-operated levers. It weighed over 100 pounds fully loaded, and it held exactly 5 gallons of hydrogen peroxide. 5 gallons. That was the number that would haunt this entire program. But here's what nobody warned Harold Graham about before his first flight. During testing, Wendell Moore himself had taken the device airborne on a tether. 20 flights in, the nylon safety line got wrapped around the superheated rocket nozzles. It melted instantly. Moore dropped 10 feet onto a concrete floor. His kneecap shattered on impact. Bell quietly started looking for a new test pilot. 27-year-old Harold Graham volunteered. After 36 tethered flights, Graham was cleared for free flight, April 20th, 1961. 15 days before Alan Shepard became the first American in space, Graham ignited the rocket, rose 18 inches into the air, flew 100 feet at 10 miles per hour for 21 seconds. The crowd applauded. The cameras rolled. The footage was extraordinary. Then someone did the math out loud. 21 seconds of flight, 120 meters of range, 16 kilometers per hour top speed, 5 gallons of hydrogen peroxide completely burned for every single flight. You couldn't carry spare fuel. The system was already at its weight limit. There was no parachute. The device flew too low for one to open. If the engine failed mid-flight, the pilot fell, and the Army needed a dedicated support team just to operate it. Fuel handlers, safety crews, transport for the equipment, an entire logistical tale for one man, 21 seconds every time. The math was brutal. A helicopter could carry a dozen soldiers across the battlefield and return for more. The rocket belt could carry one man for the length of a tennis court, and then it was done. The Army's official verdict was blunt. More a spectacular toy than an effective means of transport. Program canceled. That was 1961. But here's what the Army didn't count on. Bell wasn't finished. For the next 6 years, Bell kept working, without Army funding, mostly on their own conviction. They demonstrated the rocket belt at Disneyland in front of Cinderella's castle. They flew it around the stadium at the very first Super Bowl in 1967. Sean Connery wore one in the James Bond film Thunderball, launching off a French chateau rooftop, and the scene became one of the most iconic in the franchise's history. The device the Army called a toy was now selling movie tickets and filling stadiums, but Bell's engineers weren't interested in movie stunts. They were trying to solve the real problem, and in 1967, someone gave them the resources to do it. The Advanced Research Projects Agency, the Pentagon's elite research division, the same organization that would later build the internet, handed Bell Aerosystems $30 million. $30 million. The program had a new name, the Individual Mobility System, and this time, they were throwing out everything. No more hydrogen peroxide, no more steam. Bell's engineers installed a real jet turbine engine, air breathed in from below, blasted out through vectored nozzles at the pilot's shoulders. 2 joysticks for full 3-dimensional control. The new machine was called the jet belt, and the numbers were in a completely different category. Where the rocket belt topped out at 16 kilometers per hour, the jet belt could move a soldier at over 100 miles per hour. Where the rocket belt lasted 21 seconds, the jet belt could stay airborne for up to 20 minutes. For one terrifying moment, the Army genuinely thought they'd solved it. 20 minutes of flight. Miles of range, 100 miles per hour. 1 soldier, no runway, no crew, just a man and a machine and open sky. Bell completed the prototype in 1968. It flew, it worked, and then the war changed the question entirely. While Bell's engineers were perfecting the jet belt, Vietnam had rewritten the rules, not with jetpacks, with the Bell UH-1 Iroquois, the Huey. By 1968, Bell was producing 150 Huey helicopters every single month. Production aircraft delivered, operational, in combat across Southeast Asia, and those helicopters were doing things no jetpack could ever do. One Huey could carry 12 fully equipped soldiers, fly for 2 hours, mount machine guns, rocket pods, guided missiles, extract wounded, resupply forward positions, provide close air support, and here's what made the comparison devastating. Bell built the Huey too. The same company that had spent 15 years fighting for the jetpack had simultaneously built the machine that made the jetpack irrelevant, because Vietnam wasn't a war of individual soldiers leaping over obstacles. It was a war of units, companies, battalions, moving through dense jungle, across rivers, over mountains, with weapons, ammunition, radios, and supplies. The jetpack could carry 1 man, the Huey could carry a platoon. When the Army placed those 2 options side by side, in a real war, with real casualties, but where the decision took about 30 seconds. By 1968, the Army was losing interest in the jet belt. By 1969, the program was canceled. $30 million. 1 prototype, 0 battlefield deployments, the helicopter won. But here's the part of the story that should bother you. The individual jetpack didn't fail because it was impossible. It failed because it was early. The rocket belt's fatal flaw, 21 seconds of flight, was a fuel storage problem, a chemistry problem, a physics problem, not a fundamental limit. In 2019, a British company called Gravity Industries demonstrated a jet-powered flight suit capable of sustained human flight. Their pilot flew over a Royal Marine warship, landed on the deck, and repeated it on demand. The Royal Marines began field testing immediately. Special Forces commands around the world quietly took notice. And in 2025, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the same organization that funded the jet belt in 1967, announced it was open to new proposals for single-rider portable air transport systems. 60 years later, same agency, same mission, same question. They never stopped asking it. 1 Bell rocket belt sits in the Smithsonian Institution's National Air and Space Museum, alongside the Wright brothers flyer and Charles Lindbergh's Spirit of St. Louis. The curators of American aviation history decided this machine deserved to be there. The Army called it a spectacular toy. The Smithsonian put it next to the most important flying machines ever built. Somewhere in that gap, between those 2 judgments, is the real story of what happened to the military jetpacks of the 1960s. They didn't fail. They arrived 20 years before the materials science, the fuel density, and the battlefield doctrine could catch up to them. And right now, in classified facilities, in private aerospace companies, in special operations planning rooms, someone is building the next version. Because some problems don't go away just because the first solution wasn't ready. The dream of 1 soldier, 1 machine, any terrain, any obstacle, any enemy. Turns out, that dream is very hard to give up. If you want more stories about the weapons, programs, and technology the military built, tested, and never told you about, subscribe. New episodes drop every week, and drop it in the comments. Do you think the modern jetpack finally solves what Bell couldn't, or does the helicopter still win? We read every single one. See you in the next one.